The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for joining us today. I'm heartbroken by the innocent lives that have been lost of civilians being targeted by hateful terrorist groups like Hamas. This is outrageous and inevitably leads to tragic consequences. Condemning these atrocities and protecting innocent lives at all costs is pivotal. Our discussion on worldwide threats is important for the American people so we can further address such issues void of partisan brinkmanship. We all must do better. Director Wray, our nation's HBCUs produce some of the brightest who enter our ever-growing workforce. Repeated threats to these institutions have caused widespread disruption on campuses by shutting down classes and campus activity. Mr. Wray, could you please briefly update us on the FBI's activity and things that you're actively doing to monitor and combat such events in the future?
Well, thank you, Congressman. Certainly the threats that we saw against HBCUs were appalling, and there's absolutely no excuse for putting campuses, students, faculty, staff in a position where they can't go about their lives at school in fear. And so we have actively been investigating the threats as they've come in. As you know, there was an arrest related to some of the threats, involved a juvenile who was responsible for a number of the threats. I think more importantly, we've doubled down on our engagement with HBCUs. I've personally engaged with a number of HBCU law enforcement heads. We have an increased partnership with campus law enforcement over the last 2 years. That's, including in this recent threat environment. We're very careful to include campus law enforcement in all of our law enforcement partner calls. We have campus liaison officers, in effect, appointed in each one of our field offices to focus specifically on engagement with academia. So that's a big part of it. It's not just the investigations and the analysis, but also the outreach.
How has that been ramped up with the recent hate speak for Muslims and Jewish brothers and sisters and Palestinians? We see this overboiling because of what's happening in the Middle East, spreading and boiling into the college campus environment as well as just our general communities. We know that Hamas is the true threat, but because of these risks, we're seeing this bleed over into a level of hatred for innocent people who have nothing to do with Hamas.
Well, certainly we're in an environment where the number of tips and threats that are being reported to us have gone up significantly since October 7th. We were already, as I testified earlier, already in an elevated threat environment even before October 7th, and it's gone to a whole nother level since October 7th. The biggest chunk of the threats that have been reported into us by a good margin are threats to the Jewish community, synagogues, Jewish prominent officials, things like that. We also have a large number of tips and leads related specifically to Hamas and radicalization and recruitment. We do also have some threats to Muslim Americans that have also been called in. And so we are urgently running down every tip and lead we get and trying to mitigate them and engaging. I think the thing that distinguishes the post-October 7th environment even more than the pre-October 7th environment, one of the things that distinguishes it is how—
Director, I don't want to cut you off. You've got an important job. We appreciate the hard work that you and men and women of your department do. Very quickly, Secretary Mayorkas, the Countering Weapons Mass Destruction CWMD office will sunset. You acknowledged this in your opening remarks. If Congress does not act, I understand that there are a few vehicles which you're working on to ensure that CWMD continues to operate. As you know, last night we passed a temporary measure in the CR that will extend the sunset through February of 2024. If this is not made permanent, if we're not able to move forward with a permanent measure, how does that impact your ability to protect American cities and to protect our country?
Congressman, thank you very much. It is a incredible detriment to our ability to secure the American people. Just in the last 2 days, a local law enforcement officer equipped with some of the equipment that we provide to detect radiological nuclear material, in fact, was wearing a device that detected an abandoned material in a very unsafe location that could have caused a tremendous amount of harm to people in the surrounding community. This is a vital authority that we absolutely need.
Thank you. My time has expired.
The gentleman yields. As a point of